Speaking about the Gans field effect, the Gans field effect is this. So the Gans field procedure at the first sound is a practical joke. Begin at first. This sounds a bad practical joke. Begin turning on the radio in history, playing static. Then lie down on a couch. Tape a pair of ping pong balls to your over your eyes. Wait minutes. You should be as begin experiencing bizarre sensory distortion. Some people see horses prancing in the clouds, or some hear the voice of a dead relative. It turns out your mind is addicted to sensation. So when there's little sense, the purpose of a ping pong ball and static, your brain starts inventing its own. So these are my notes on it. The Gansfield effect is related to the Gansfield um, procedure because the Gansfield effect was what it's going to be about, but the procedure matters so much. The brain has to create nothing. Uh, must have a basically when you sleep, the brain has to have nothing, but nothing is absolute, uh, absolute nothing. You know, because having black, when I sleep, basically I see black. I see Eigengray. Now, Eigengray puts me in a state of stillness because you can have a tub, you can be in a tub of water, or so salt water, I can feel no sensation. And this the basically the same thing happens with the brain. Because the basically it's called sensory deprivation. And sensory deprivation is a big factor of what I'm going to talk about today, perception. I'm claiming that perception the perception basically perception of uh is a referential. Perception is referential. What is it referencing to? It's referring to our environment, in and out of our environment. And that's why I believe what's happening with the Gansfield procedure. Because we can be ourselves, but without perception, it's referential. So it's reference to the in and out of our surroundings. The in and out of our surroundings. Okay. So when there's nothing, your brain makes something because maybe that something is referencing to something nearer or farther, but it's calibrated to acknowledge something. Uh, Something is out there in the world. It cannot just be me, you know. So when you watch a scary movie, the perception has to, and you go to sleep, you start seeing stuff. But some of the fear I'm talking about, because it's referential, you know, uh, you know, you know, you know what I'm saying. I'm gonna really emphasize on Eigengray and sensory bath, like what do you call it? Salt bath. I don't know what it's called. Basically, when you sleep in a pod and the pod is salty, and that salty water sleeping. You can't feel salt on your body. That is a perfect environment for astral projection. Astral projection is a key part of the sleep pod. I'm not making a call it sleep pod. I don't know what the full name of it is, but it allows you to because your senses are in a state of you're in a state of subconsciousness, and because you're subconscious, your reality is halved, and you have reference to another reality that may or may not be yours. Is may not be yours outside your surrounding or inside your mind, or and inside your mind. And when people see horses and stuff, that's no joke. It's not that crazy. It's just how the brain processes information. So the brain is not fluctuating. is doing its job. It's looking for information. It's trying to create meaning. Because while you process stuff because of meaning, so your brain starts to create meaning from the world around it. And that's why that stops, So it's trying to make sense of something, but it's only to make sense of, so it creates a scene. Dreaming while you're awake. Yeah, so the brain allows you, just like dreaming while you're awake, dreaming while you're awake suggests that the brain is creating its own reality and making stuff better. Trying to create new realities that is underlining the things you already know. Because it happens to even the blind people with the auditory hallucination, based on derivation. Because you're crazy, crazy you are, experience what it's like to be aware. But because for me, I like to link to consciousness. So I believe that this is just this is just a natural thing the brain does. Because why brain does it? You just have to remember when the brain does it. You know, because the no noise, actually, the when there's no sense, like there's a no noise room. I don't know the rooms. Okay, there's a quiet room that picks up all the noise. So you can't, when you make a sound, you can't make any sound, but it starts to drive you mad because there is no sound to process. These are called deprivation rules because when you're playing static or seeing, basically, I'm not saying about I'm talking about sensation because sensory deprivation. I'm talking about processing. I'm not talking about no noise in the room. I'm talking about, like, I'm not talking about absolute quiet. I'm talking about having some kind of auditory, like static, that implicates nothing because the radio has static. Or I'm talking about a bathtub, salt water bathtub that can give you almost no senses. You just feel salt. So it will weighs you down. But you have some sensation of nothingness, of numbness, because it's calibrated to nothing in that field. The field is calibrated to nothingness, such as radio frequencies or saltwater baths. And I don't believe the room works like if it's fully quiet, but it doesn't work that way. And if I have taste, as long as it's numb, it's numb. It numbs the senses, because you have to numb the senses to address the information um to be perceived, because we can perceive stuff differently based on interpretation of those information. And I'm saying that the brain picks up information, and when it's nothing, it has to refer to something. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for listening.